Well, hi everybody, and welcome to our continuing work with glamour. Now, I do want to say, and probably you know, that this is Friday the 13th of ill repute because Jacques de Molay and the Templars suffered an ignominious fate long ago. It was a bad day for the seventh ray. It seems that the Church could not abide either the seventh ray or the scientific fifth ray. The Church at the time wanted it all their own way. But at the same time, today is the 34th anniversary of the founding of the University of the Seven Rays in Jersey City. I think it was about 4:28 in the afternoon. And we came up, I think, with a very interesting chart, which we've been using these many years. So it's a day of, in my mind anyway, of some celebration of our ongoing work all these years. And 2 years earlier than that, the Seven Ray Institute was established. Well, it's founded one morning at 5 o'clock in the morning with Marianne Castellino and Dot Maver and Rick Good and myself. We seemed to put in the application, and then on September 9th we received word that all of that had been accepted. So we were off and running in this attempt to bring the ageless wisdom closer to all of us, and to make it a real fact in our lives. I just want to thank BL and Joe for being here, helping to guide the process, and to welcome Anne and from California, and Annette, New Zealand, and Carl from Pittsburgh, and Catherine from Australia, and Georgina, I'm not quite sure, but welcome, and Heike from Germany, and Joan, again, welcome. I don't know the physical plane whereabouts of every attendee. Karen in Portland, and Martine, again, well, it's something French or Canadian, isn't it? And Mera Santos, welcome, and Nesa Burros, and Tia from the Washington, D.C. area, and Vivian, welcome, and Zenaidi, I think, from Switzerland at the moment, and Jan from the U.S. somewhere, I think out west, and Sari. Welcome, all of you, to our continuing work with Glamour, World Problem. And as you may know, I've been trying to provide you with verbal commentary on the Dinah books, and today I was able to complete program number 26. So we're more than halfway through, I hope, the beginning of Discipleship in the New Age, Volume 1, Section 1, and we've begun part number 6. Fascinating stuff, and I have written a little bit, very little, but about the nature of what is discussed in that program. I was able to go on for a while. It's almost 3 hours long. So it's just a question of when you can listen in on these things. It may be a way to learn. Today we're with program 182 in the glamour work, and reading 119. We're on page 195. Well, I think we're just about 2/3 of the way through the glamour book. I may have read what's coming up a little bit here, but I will reread it. We're talking about intuition and the spiritual triad. Yes, we're talking about the light of knowledge, light of intuition, and the means of knowledge, 5 senses, the psychic sensitivity of the astral plane, and the mental focus, or even polarization, which brings intellectual perception. He says, whoops, gotta find myself here. On a higher turn of the spiral, and these, let me say, are words to us to a certain extent. We talk about things, but do we experience these states? That's what we have to ask ourselves. On a higher turn of the spiral, the intuition is the expression of the threefold spiritual triad. May I say, it's also bringing in the light, but a much more universal light, which is expressing also love. So it's an expression of the threefold spiritual triad. We can't really reach it entirely, at least the permanent atoms of those 2 higher aspects of the spiritual triad, Atma and Buddhi, are out of reach for us, and even they are not really within reach of a master. They are Chohanic in their elevation. So about the intuition here, he says, placing it in relation to the higher levels of divine expression, about which we, may I say much, but have to learn how to, as it were, I say experience, but inperience the process. Making up words, I like to do that if they will capture something of what is intended. And of the intuition, he says, look, it is the result of the life of the monad. Well, there is a connection there between plane number 6, astral, plane number 4, where on the first phases of the intuition are found, and plane number 6, counting from above, where the first instance of the monad is found. There are other areas for this monadic, liberated monad and its influence. So it is a result of the life of the monad, an energy which carries revelation of divine purpose. So the intuition, in some measure, it's not just a psychic hunch, it is carrying revelation of divine purpose because it is connected to the monad. Sorry. It is in the world of this divine revelation. May I add, it's sometimes called the world of the transcendental mind, the transcendental function of Mercury. It is in the world of this divine revelation that the disciple learns eventually to work, and in which the initiate consciously functions. The members of the hierarchy, ever since about 1925, have been relocated, many of them, in terms of their point of tension, and find that their ashrams are within the spiritual triad, and not so much as formerly located on the higher mental plane, though there still are expressions of those ashrams on the higher mental plane. So when we are initiates, and every true disciple is being prepared for initiation if they will only fulfill certain requirements, and I've gone over those just recently in today's Discipleship Volume 1 program. I'm reading every word DK said, okay, every word, and trying to oftentimes read between the lines, because he's a master of the English language these days, especially with the help of Alice Bailey, who in a way brought him up to date and away from maketh, breaketh, and taketh that at the time he had learned English. So going on, of this higher experience, the active life of the three worlds is a distorted expression. Of the triad, the active life of the three worlds below is a distorted expression, but constitutes also, and note this, the training ground. Don't we all need the training? But constitutes also the training ground in which capacity to live the initiate life of intuitional perception and to serve the plan is slowly developed. So it's not for nothing that we find ourselves largely focused in the three lower worlds, and capacities that we need for spiritual esoteric advancement are being built up, however long it does seem to take, and it sometimes seems to take a long time. But there's an acceleration now of possibility, is there not? Opportunity is with us through Saturn, the ruler of the first decanate of Aquarius. Saturn, in relation to the sign Aquarius taken in the normal counterclockwise order. Saturn first, Mercury next, Venus next. It's all interwoven. And thereby, in saying that, and using the word woven, I relate it to the third ray. Now, in the studies that I've just been looking at, DK comments on the fact that disciples are saying, well, is all this really necessary? Do I have to know these energies? Do I have to know the soul state of my fellow ashramic member or applicant? And well, you can read it. Basically, he says, yeah, yes, you do. Yes, you do. So disciples, he says, will reach a point in their development where they will know whether they are reacting to the light of the soul, because the soul is, in a way, light, or to the intuitional perception of the triad, that is, to the transcendental mind, well, of pure reason. Well, right now, these may be words to us. Is it the revealing light, or is it this great sense of universality and love? As the beginning part of this book tells us, which the intuition confers. Probably real intuition in our life, in the way DK defines it, is pretty rare, actually. But we are pushing at the gates, and during the sixth root race, where Buddhi will be so important, and where Brazil, South America will be so important, the intuition will be developed. Right now, what is developing for us in the next 2,000 years is not so much the fruit of the sixth root race as the fruit of the sixth sub-aspect of the fifth root race, which is the development of the abstract mind. So going on, they will then come to the point where they will realize that intuitive perception, as they call it, is only the reaction of the illumined personality. Wait a second. Illumined personality to identification. The identification tendency of the triad. So where is it that this identification, of which the Christ for us is the master of all the masters, is a tendency of the initiatic consciousness as it exists within the spiritual triad? I've been working now at some of these possible techniques which involve the eye and the heart to kind of help us induce, by oscillating between them, help us induce the sense of identification. I'm not there yet, but I'm not there yet according to my will, on demand. Do it now, make it work now, and all that. But I'm getting there, and It's very different, the perception of the eye and the perception or infuception of the heart. So anyway, identification is a tendency of the triad. And we can begin working on that even after the second initiation. And, well, of course, the second initiation is high. One of the disciples gathered around the Tibetan well. He, as I commented on him, he's thought he was passing through the fourth degree, but DK said you might pass through the second, and therefore, you see, we rate you highly. Well, that's the moment when you enter the stream, as it tells us in the Secret of the Golden Flower by translation by Blavatsky, and the ashramic current sweeps you along in addition to the propulsion that you generate with your own efforts. So identification, there's a lot of that in our study program, Identify as Being. But, says the Tibetan, these concepts are beyond the grasp of the average man. Because, and this is important, fusion and identification are by no means the same. So with fusion, the many parts still maintain their kind of autonomy within the psyche. They are related by you to the fusion formulas that he goes through: isolated unity, inclusive reason, presented attributes, all found in esoteric psychology too. Each one of the aspects has its own integrity, however it may be fused together and made to cohere and harmonized with others. But identification is another matter. And basically, it is a contemplative becoming of that which is perceived. Now think of it, identification, a contemplative becoming of that which is perceived. It's the, we might say in another way, it's the infuception of that which is usually simply a perception. Well, we will develop the ability if we persist. Well, we have to persist, and if one day we catch ourselves not persisting, we will wake up and tell ourselves that we must persist, and we must, as they say in the arcane school, or long ago said, we must keep on keeping on. It is not to everyone's taste to keep on keeping on. The usual approach of the aspirant and even the initial disciple is a bit more sporadic. But as we read in discipleship, it is the one thing that we must hold in our mind. The objective as the hierarchy sees it. Now, it's a bit hard, isn't it, at our stage to transfer ourselves into hierarchical perception or infuception. Let's just say that through the imaginative building of the Antakarana, that inner organ, as it is called, our perception, our consciousness will subtly change. These changes which we are looking for are not usually so dramatic. They slowly change. They offer change slowly and in a subtle manner. DK goes on here to say, I guess it's now the technique of light particularly, which is what we use in our glamour busting, so to speak. He says the rules for the technique of light have been adequately laid down in the Raja Yoga system of Patanjali. Now, there's a master from 10,000 years ago, maybe, and as it is, we know that the name of a great one is often taken by many of his followers, indicating some kind of lineage, some kind of line of connection. So we work with the technique of light and with the imagination as we pursue a system which still none of us can master, the Raja Yoga system. Now, what about that Agni Yoga system, that yoga of synthesis, which is waiting for us? Well, we're just beginners, okay? But the beginner does not become the accomplished disciple without persistent attention. So anyway, we're talking about the Raja Yoga system of Patanjali, of which the 5 stages of concentration, meditation, concentration, Leo, meditation, Virgo, contemplation, Libra, illumination, Scorpio, inspiration, Sagittarius, and, it all ends in initiation, Capricorn, and even goes on from there. But anyway, these 5, they are illustrative. These, in their turn, must be paralleled by a following of the 5 rules and the 5 commandments, and those are laid out right at the beginning of the book, and we could go back into the light of the soul and we could find them. There are things we have to do, and there are things from which we have to abstain if we don't want to thwart our esoteric progress and the progress of our groups. So I won't get into them right now, but you can go there and you just look it up. The 5 rules and the 5 commandments. And that's especially easy to do if you have the Alice Bailey CD-ROM applying it to the light of the soul. A DK goes on, I would ask you to study these. Well, probably many of us have studied them over years, but have we been successful in applying them in their subtlety? You know, when we're told to abstain from avarice, it doesn't mean that, like a burglar, we're breaking into someone's house and taking things. It has to do with mental theft, with psychological theft, with coveting what another person has interiorly. I remember Ralph Waldo Emerson, in one of his essays, I can't say which one, but he basically said that all imitation, grasping after what another has, is complete foolishness. You'll never get anything that way. It all has to be worked out from within. And we will work it out. Okay. So I would ask you to study these. Okay. They, in their turn, produce the many results in psychic sensitivity. And, you know, when dealing with the word psychic, we have to remember it's not just astral. The soul is the psyche, isn't it, after all? And when Master Moria constantly speaks of the effectiveness of psychic energy, I mean, at least that's the way it's translated from the Russian, he's not talking just about astral energy, he's talking about soul energy. So we have to be quite precise in our use of words and our alertness to their connotations. So if we really follow the 5 rules and 5 commandments, many psychic results or results in psychic sensitivity will arise. And we recognize, at least I'm recognizing right now, from the Dyna books, how important is the factor of sensitivity, which is not the same as being a thin-skinned, self-centered person. So, okay, the many results in psychic sensitivity, of which hierarchical contact, illumination, service, and discipline are descriptive. And finally, the stage, and I like this combination of words, eventually the stage of isolated unity. Shall we say, beginning around the 3rd initiation and definitely established by the 5th. Isolated unity, which is the paradoxical term used by Patanjali to describe the inner life of the initiate. Well, one could write a whole essay on isolated unity. The main idea is in the midst of the many, we isolate or become aware of the one, which is the unity factor. You can almost begin to feel what that would be like. Usually our attention is so distracted by the items of manyness. I was saying today to myself, Ralph Waldo Emerson's arresting comment about our superficial values. He said, "Things are in the saddle and ride mankind." Well, that's not isolated unity. No matter what we experience of multiplicity, the unity is always perceived. That's infuception. The unity, subtle, is always perceived. Not I'm interested in this and I'm interested in that. And yeah, I mean, you may be, but don't violate the unity. Don't violate the one. And that also takes time. DK goes on to say much of what I have said above is well known to all aspirants, whether they study the Raja Yoga teaching of India or the life of practical mysticism as laid down by such mystics as Meister Eckhart and the more mentally polarized modern esotericist. Back when I was 21, I was a bookmobile chaser. We lived out in the country. The library was quite a number of miles away, and the bookmobile would come pretty near the house. And I always went there, and I found the section on mystics, and I read a lot of them. You know, St. John of the Cross and Jan van Ruysbroek and, well, Teresa of Avalon, was it? And also Meister Eckhart. Now, DK lists him as among the more mentally polarized mystics, and now he's saying Meister Eckhart had a very practical outer life. But his path was the mental path. And I'm not sure I ever understood, but it did whet my appetite. I remember a funny thing coming to me years later. A relative of mine was talking to me about what I wanted to do in life. And I was again young in the body, maybe 17, 18, 19, I don't know. And I said, I'd like to be a mystic. That was the stage I was going through. And she said, well, I think that's the most useless thing I ever heard. What can you expect? She was a Virgo, okay. And quite a concrete Virgo at that, though extremely intelligent. That's how I thought in those days. And I'm very grateful to Master DK for helping me transform mysticism into occultism or esotericism. And to my first teacher, Andrew McIver, who did the same, maybe on a lower turn of the spiral, but he was the real thing. So the mystical vision, it's Neptune, and we have to have it before we can be a responsible, feeling, sentient, heart-alive mystic. We have to blend both, and you've seen the diagrams where Neptune and Uranus are sitting up there above all those Saturnian planets, and both of them are necessary. So, okay, Um, Eckhart, apparently here, and the more mentally polarized esotericist, which we should be becoming, of them, of us, DK says, these latter went beyond the mystical vision by arriving at fusion, not just something off there that they're yearning to have, but they could actually begin to fuse the different aspects of their nature. And, he deals with it in esoteric psychology too, for all of us. The fusion formulas, first the integration formulas, then the advanced fusion formulas. He says further, I need not enlarge on this. It is the higher stage of at-one-ment to which all true mystics bear witness. I guess from Alice Bailey's book, From Intellect to Intuition, we get quite a few quotes from, sounds like an expert mystic, Evelyn Underhill. And sometimes I read what she has said and I'm not sure I understand, but she was obviously deeply into the mystical experience. Well, for us who study with Master DK, mysticism lies behind us. We can recapture it and utilize it, but always in relation to the developing esotericism or spiritual occultism. What he goes on to say, what does concern us here is how this light, in the technique of light, is recognized, appropriated, and used in order to dispel glamour and render a deeply esoteric service to the world. No wonder those who use these techniques are laying themselves open to attack by the counterforce. Deeply esoteric service. Nothing superficial here in this technique of light. If we could just learn how to, what shall I say, wield the beam in a group sense, and also an individual sense when we're working on our own individual glamours, which we'll be lucky to detect. Now, maybe ask someone who lives with you what your glamours might be. You might get a clearer evaluation than trying to find them yourself. It's just like I sometimes joke. I said, well, I'd like some person who knows me really well to take the personal identity profile, the PIP test, for me and answer the questions as if they were viewing me, see what they say. When I have done that, I've always come up as the fanatic. So it certainly tells me that in my past I've known a lot of the six-ray tendency that maybe is still with us. There were, the transfer from the sixth ray to the second or sixth ray to the third, these are common and expected transferences. Now, does somebody else really know you better than you know yourself? Well, not necessarily, but they might point out things that you are only too happy to overlook. Okay, so we've got a deeply esoteric service to the world. It might be said that the inner light is like a searchlight swinging out into the world of glamour and of human struggle. Now that tells us how the fourth ray is related to the whole glamour issue. Swinging out into the world of glamour and human struggle from what one master has called, quote, the pedestal of the soul and the spiritual tower or beacon. It's interesting how DK has worked the idea of the tower into some advice he has given, well, at least one disciple, and maybe more. The pedestal of the soul and the spiritual tower or beacon. So from that, the beam, the searchlight, swings out into this habitual world, or world of habitual glamour. These terms, he says, convey the idea of altitude and of distance, which are so characteristic of the mystical approach. As a matter of fact, he kind of tells us something very interesting about the head when it comes to mysticism. For the mystic, there is a real strong emphasis right above the head. For the occultist, that emphasis sinks down into the middle of the etheric brain. And there, in that spot which is neither dry nor wet, I think it's Rule 8 of magic, he finds the place whereon his feet are set. It's not exactly, it's close. So we're interested in combining our occultism with the mysticism which was the first tendency of the past. Altitude and distance, which are so characteristic of the mystical approach. Power to use this light as a dissipating agent only comes when these symbols are dropped and the server begins to regard himself as the light. Pausing here, I am the light of the world. I am the love of the world. And so we can begin to broaden our identification. About light, Christ said it, Hermes said it, but what state of self-perception is necessary to realize oneself as light? So we drop the symbols, they have indicated the way, and we begin to regard ourselves as light and as the irradiating center. Within our inner self, we have these capacities we can use. Herein lies the reason for some of the technicalities of the occult science. The esotericist knows. Now, think about Cancer and Leo here. Think about dark light and expressed light, the esotericist knows that in every atom of his body is to be found a point of light. Every atom. He knows that the nature of the soul is light. Okay, that's an important one. And it reminds us that the kind of light that comes, for instance, through Leo is called the light of the soul. For eons, he walks by means of the light engendered within his vehicles. So, let us say, light is the great guide, just the way faith is. The more occult reading of light, of faith, is the substance of things hoped for, and the evidence of things not seen is that light is the substance of things hoped for, and the evidence of things not seen. So for eons, it says here, he walks by means of the light engendered within his vehicles, by the light within the atomic substance of his body, and is therefore guided by the light of matter. Later, he discovers the light of the soul. Later still, he learns to fuse and blend soul light and material light. Well, it's all a big experiment with light. Humanity is to become a great station of light, and even our planetary logos from the planetary perspective is to become a great station of light. And right now, for a great percentage of humanity, things are pretty dark, and human beings don't know it. And then he shines forth as a light bearer, and may I say, we often use the term glibly. Oh yes, I'm a light bearer, I'm a light worker, etc., etc. But we may not have really arrived at the point where we blend and fuse soul light and material light. So let's be careful about the claims we make. Then he shines forth as a light bearer, the purified light of matter and the light of the soul being blended and focused. And we see therefore how important it is to purify the light of matter, and how the very first initiation seized to that. And in the ancient days of Lemuria, there were attempts to do that, because that was the initiation offered then. And then we've got a blended and focused light, and the use of this focused light as it dispels, usually a term related to illusion, the use of this focused light as it dispels individual glamour teaches the disciples the early stages of the technique which will dispel group glamour. Usually the term is dissipate, but he's not being ultra exact at all times. He is acquainted then with the early stages of the technique which will dispel group glamour and eventually world glamour. And remember, it is a profoundly esoteric method. And this is the next point with which we will deal. Okay, so, when he comes to a whole new subject, I'm not going to barge into it. I'm thinking that we have plenty to absorb right here without starting a new subject. And when I'm doing the Dyna books in the conversational manner, I take up the same attitude. If I come to an entirely new section, I don't worry about how much time it has taken, whether too much or too little. I just stop there. Because for purposes of assimilation, it's probably a better thing to do. And this has taken us to, well, is it just the beginning of page 197? Is that it? Something like that. It's not the number of pages, it's the depth of understanding. And that would be all well and good if one could live to be a couple of centuries. Then one could deal with much more, but okay. So 119, and I'm not sure when we meet again on Glamour.
Michael,
yeah.
I'm looking at the calendar and it looks like it's going to be 5 p.m. on the 27th.
Okay. Great. I had to, I'd like to be able to do all those morning programs and so forth, but it's just not working out to do it that way. So when you live somewhere where it's not terribly convenient to tune in to these programs, hopefully you can hear them later. That's the idea. Okay.
Karen's got her hand up if you're open right now to.
Yeah, sure. I'm as open as I'll ever be, I guess. Yeah.
Hello, thank you. First, Michael, I would like to say congratulations on the 34th anniversary of the founding of the University of the Seven Rays.
Thank you.
And to express my deep gratitude for the profound work that you have all done and that I have been lucky enough to be the recipient of.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, so, but I think that my question is a practical one, and I think it is related to glamour. What are your thoughts about what one could say to change the mind or to encourage someone like my son who refuses to get the COVID vaccine? And what do you think is at the root of this refusal?
Well, I think, it's really a tough one, especially when we're dealing with family members. And, basically I think fear lies at the root of it all. But if he could, or such people who are intelligent and all that, but they refuse, if they could be shown the numbers, which of course those involved in conspiracy theories deny, but they get pretty well irrefutable. They start to pile up. If it could be seen that the unvaccinated states, let's say in the US, are having huge surges, and that the people who come to the hospital, young people now among them, increasingly, and may get very sick, and the people who are dying in the hospital are 99% not vaccinated. That's just a common sense approach. The numbers tell us that. Of course, I use the image. We have a kind of friend here that's begging to you not to get her second shot and all that. It's obviously fear, and I call it whistling past the graveyard at midnight, if you know what I mean. You know
Yeah.
that the graveyard is filled with unexpected phenomena, but there you are, and you kind of chase those thoughts away with your happiness antidote. The numbers themselves speak for this. Now, it's inconceivable to me that thousands of medical workers, researchers, epidemiologists, respected doctors have gathered together to fool everybody
Mhm.
and simply make a few companies rich in which they wouldn't benefit anyway. So, we're going to deal, of course, again, with the glamour of suspicion. And there's a fear that one may be left debilitated in some way by taking a vaccine, and some even think it's a hoax, the whole thing. But the chances of suffering from COVID are much, much worse. And there are certain objective scales. Just take a look at Florida, Texas, Arkansas, Missouri, maybe the worst right now, maybe Florida. Look what's going on there. And these people are going to the hospital, the beds are running out, they're dying, and they're not vaccinated.
So,
Now,
Mike, you mentioned the fear and you think the fear is at the root of the
I do.
people,
I
the
do.
people who refuse. I know for me, what it evokes is fear, fear that my son may die if he gets this. But anyway, so you think it's fear is
I
basically
think the whole thing is the greatest of all glamours is the glamour of fear, and of course then you start throwing suspicion in with it, and they're out to get you, and it gets to be paranoia, and basically you overlook the obvious, and the result, can be, for many people, it can be deadly.
Yeah.
Overlooking the obvious. So an intelligent person, and I'm sure your son is, can maybe look at the numbers, which are being recorded by the health concerns. And what's the big one in Georgia? What's that called?
The
Center for
CDC,
Disease
yeah,
Control.
CDC.
Yeah. These people are not lying to us. They're doing their best. And if suspicion tells us that they are lying, then what's lurking inside the suspicious person? And yes, every once in a while, at a very low rate, a person here, a person there has an adverse reaction, but it's just a minimal percentage. Of course, it's bad for the person for whom it happens, but the vaccinated people are not dying. That's the point. And the others are. That's how I'd approach it.
Well,
I,
nothing has worked so far, but you know, I don't know what to do. And really what I'm having to deal with is my own fear, of his death.
well, sure, you see, and that's a legitimate fear, because when a person denies danger, then of course it's a real thing. Where does he live?
Well, he lives here in Portland.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so it's not in one of those under-vaccinated states. But, he's really got to be willing to discuss it thoroughly and do the research, unless, of course, he is taken in by the conspiracists. And
Yeah,
I think, yeah,
that's the problem. And he's done lots of research there. And we cannot, it doesn't work what we say, but we're not alone here. This is a global and
it's
a
a
national
huge
issue.
problem.
Yeah, it really is. And I've never seen anything like it. I'm just stumped.
No, this is that epidemic that was often promised and never delivered, but is now being delivered by the powers that be to help humanity get on the right track. And it's so sad when intelligent people just ignore the obvious. I don't have this exactly in my family. They have taken it with so far no adverse effects, and just the overwhelming majority have taken the second shot, and some even have managed a third with no ill effects. Even just mathematically, the odds are way against having any ill effects. And the proof of protection is there in terms of the unvaccinated crowding the hospitals and doing the dying. So, okay, for sometimes a parent is at a disadvantage in talking to a child. Sometimes it comes better from someone else, but what can you do? I know I would be, if my kids were doing that, I would be on their case night and day. So
Yeah.
it's
Well,
second rate.
thanks for your thoughts, but it's so frustrating also when healthcare workers, doctors and nurses aren't doing it and now have to be mandated. That's a whole nother thing there,
It is like, look, it's whistling past the graveyard. Why should we have to go through such a thing? These people are saying. Therefore, the next step is it doesn't really exist. It's all a big lie. But then, we have to look at the potentials for paranoia and suspicion in ourselves if people are willing to do the introspection. And we find a lot of stuff, in ourselves, sort of lurking at the bottom of the aura, waiting to be expiated. But then again, you have to have, is he at all interested in esoteric things, Karen?
Oh, not, no.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, of course, isn't it? So all I can do is wish you the best in this effort. You're not alone.
I know that for sure. And thank you
And
for your thoughts. And I do think that this glamour that we're working on is a good one. Yeah.
yeah, I think it's useful. Yeah. Well, okay. Good luck with it, really. Let's, keep at it. If you're on the second ray, you will keep at it and at it and at it.
Yeah, it's called Naggy.
Yeah, well, that's good. I mean, we can get a degree in Nagy, So I would just persist and
Thank you.
try to find your own backups, as it were. The numbers are not lying, and thousands upon thousands upon thousands of dedicated, trained medical workers are not lying.
Well, of course, we're medical people, so that's not helping either.
Oh, well, do your best. Yeah.
Michael,
Tuya,
can yes,
yes,
hi to everybody. Can I just say a few words?
of course.
According to this, what Karen was questioning and putting forward again, what many of us have been facing during these months. And when we do not know answers, we know something and we can try to see through. And I have come to that kind of place in me that it certainly is related to these great changes on earth, great changes in humanity. It is related to the energies that are pouring through, and what Tibetan was saying about Sanat Kumara releasing the new type of energy, which is moving us towards the right human relations. And because the Pluto is now in Capricorn and it indicates the devil, it points out for us that we cannot escape at the moment all of that what is already written to the destiny of humanity. And these last years when Pluto is preparing us to 25. So as Tibetan has been saying, that there has not been yet on this earth chain this kind of moment. And this is it. And that's why let us try to just look through, not react in any way, what whomever, however close friend, family member, whatever they are choosing, they are somehow choosing because humanity has to choose now. And through that something is seen. And we can see that there are forces which are trying to shut down us, because if you listen what these different parties are telling, every one of the parties say the same thing, that the other one is not seeing the truth. And that is so interesting to listen. So in that dilemma, I have been trying to find my way, and my way is just trying not to react, just letting everyone do what they choose, trying to myself see what I can understand in this, and just calmly try to discuss. But to force anybody, it will not work. That is absolutely, one sees that. And because the whole humanity is reacting, so this is not the question of some bacteria or some virus. This is absolutely some very fundamental thing that Sanat Kumara wants to see how humanity is choosing at the moment. I think it is the question of that do we learn to cooperate? Do we actually learn on this planet to together find solutions? Or is it going to just again go to that direction that humanity will be divided? So these are my thoughts about it.
Yes, thank you. It's very hard. You can't really force anyone, but you can appeal to reason and you can hope that your reasons are persuasive. And and there are attacks now. I want to just say, maybe filling out what you said here, that the Lodge of Form is on the attack, and
Right.
they just are on the attack,
And
and they're
they are these forces are much greater than some local thing. This is now
yeah,
the whole humanity is in question, and I think that astrology helps us to understand that, because Pluto in Capricorn indicates the devil. So
yeah,
right.
and the devil is really the unregenerate personality, and that is what we're confronted with. People don't yet know about the other way of looking at the world, which is the uh, deeply intuitive esoteric way. So education enters into this, politics, health issues enter in, psychology enters in. The whole of humanity is under attack, and especially vulnerable are certain millions and even billions of people who are stuck in the old illusions and glamours, and we are seeing the danger of those states of mind right now. So hopefully, if we persist, what did he say up here about how did he say it was a profoundly esoteric method, or what exactly deeply esoteric service to the world? The kind of thing that we're attempting to do, and attempting to do it better and better. Deeply esoteric service to the world for the next number of years, because we know that the attack will not abate. It will get worse. So we're put on our guard, and we work accordingly. Okay, well, thank you to you for your thoughts on these matters. If only we could all speak reasonably to each other, as I've seen you attempt to do. Okay, so let's go on. Was it BL who was fielding these questions?
Yes, hold on just one second though. I think you've mixed your pages up here with your, today is webinar 182, reading 119. You've got reading 198.
Right, okay, that's a mistake.
Yeah, it's reading 119.
Okay, good.
Okay, now
Thank
let
you.
me get back to
No.
the chats. No, thank Anne Veronica.
Right, I
I
bet
wasn't.
we jumped a bunch of readings, didn't we?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Anne says, can we dispel glamours using the technique of light for individual people other than ourselves? Or must it be used for humanity as a whole and not directed at individual people?
Well, obviously it's something we work on ourselves, but if we have permission from someone, perhaps we can participate in helping them dispel their own individual glamours. But what I would recommend at this stage is to persist with working on ourselves, and then working on larger and larger wholes, the group, the nation, and humanity as a whole. I think it's a little dangerous, perhaps, to interfere in someone else's glamour dissipation. If they ask, we can discuss with them what they perceive to be a glamour. within themselves. And maybe we can help clarify their minds on these matters if they are willing. But I think at the present time, we better say it's up to them to proceed with the dissipation, and our role is to help clarify the psychological situation. That's how I would approach it at this time. Okay.
Michael, can I add there something that when we don't know what is exactly the best way to do, let us always think what hierarchy is doing. Because if hierarchy and the planetary god is accepting things what are going on in humanity, then we have to accept too. There are many things what we can see that are wrong. So what are then our role here is to keep the channel open, that these karmic angels which know and who has the order from the higher one, they can function if we keep the door open. So but this is really our job to do, that we are keeping ourselves so calm that via us can those who can work and know the real occult way.
Yes,
It
yes.
is that
I
is going to be
I do
possible.
agree. I do
Yeah.
agree. We have to avoid, now you see, what danger do we run? The glamour of interference. It's a big glamour. The glamour of not minding our own business. The glamour of butting in the affairs of another. Now look, always educationally, if we are asked or if the occasion arises, we can discuss why a person feels that this is a problem for them, and we can offer our opinion and so forth. But I would never, in an unsolicited manner, fall victim to this glamour of interference. I told you the story when I was tired in a doctor's waiting room and closed my eyes, and the next thing I knew, some very officious young lady was poking me, accusing me of meditating. Well, you know, that for me was that great moment of realizing what was this glamour of interference. It's a big one. So all of these matters are handled delicately and with respect. Okay. Next.
And then Vivienne says the evangelical churches are saying that Jesus saves and they should not get vaccinated, according to a news report yesterday on BBC.
Whew. Well, Jesus also thinks as well as saves. So I mean, you know, it's like this love of the great Savior that will do everything for you, and you don't have to take any initiative yourself. But the old saying, God helps those who help themselves. So, you know, it's a foolish position denying the good that has been generated within humanity through its own intelligence. This is my opinion, and when some of these people really begin to get the COVID, like everybody else, they're going to lie there dying in bed and saying, I wish I had taken the vaccination.
Yeah, and also, Michael, poor Jesus is having Alzheimer, because in other churches he has been told to take the vaccination. So he
He
obviously will not remember
got
everything.
a split personality.
Right.
Poor man, but okay, really. To expect that a master, a Chohan even, who has such a view of the world, would deny what human intelligence has produced to help defend against a condition which is assailing so many is just foolishness. Now, that's my opinion, okay? There's others who just say, Jesus saves, Jesus will save me, I don't have to do anything. Okay, next.
All right, I'm going to read 3 of them here pretty close together because they all have the same theme. Dana says, wise words, Miss Tuia. And then Tia says, I agree, Tuia. My meditation and deliberation on this issue brought me to the same conclusion. And then Karen says, thank you, Tuia. I appreciate your thoughts and words.
Excellent, okay. Yes, and so do I.
Thank you. Thank you.
And
Can
thank
I
you.
make a comment, please?
Dana, is that you, Dana?
Yes, it is. You know, I mean, one of the underlying things that we seem to be forgetting is that the entire universe is founded on frequency and vibration. And as a result of that, everything manifests. And no matter which side you're on, if you're living in fear, you're going to attract that which you fear. And if you live on a level of purity or indifference or vision, then you recognize that viruses and bacteria only exist at a specific frequency and vibration. And if that's where you choose to live, that's what you're going to attract. Now, that doesn't mean not to do this or not to do that. But I mean, for me, because before the vaccines were out, I was actively working on people with COVID and picking absolutely nothing up because of what I do all the time on a daily basis. If that was all I personally had to depend on was a vaccine and a mask, I would be scared to death. But because of the fact of the meditations, because I have 25 years ago, I had this energy and I could feel it. And I was like, this is interesting. And it's all around me. And it's like, I think I'll let it in. About 2 days later, I was probably the sickest I've been in 25 years. You know, it's like, I don't do that anymore. I don't let that stuff in, you know. But it's better to integrate and use everything at our disposal that we feel good about, you know, because you can't run on fear. Fear isn't helpful.
Yes, exactly. You know, I've seen some astonishing videos of one of the early Rife microscopes in action. And this microscope zeroed in on live cancer cells, which, when a certain frequency was applied to them, exploded.
Yep. And today's Rife machines has frequencies for COVID, just an FYI.
Okay, that's interesting. And of course, some of this has to be experimented with. And maybe they have. But the point is, vibrational medicine is coming. It's going to come from dedicated research workers who are in the new paradigm, and as usual, by some of the unthinking or many of the unthinking, it will be at first rejected before it proves itself. So there are, you know, as you said, we cannot overlook the value of what the human being in its research capacity has actually done. Use everything that works. It just makes common sense, and no master would say, we're going to save you, don't use everything that works. It's crazy. Thank you, Dana.
And then Heike says, I have the same problem with my son. So I guess she's talking to Karen here. We came to the point that each of us accepts the decision of the other, which doesn't really take my fear away. He could suffer from COVID or even die. And then she also says, thank you, Tuia.
Yeah, I mean, a parent is in a tough position, and actually, he deals with this quite a bit in esoteric psychology too, where he basically says that we as parents, well, we have to let go, is basically what he's saying. I mean, you know, if all persuasion means nothing and comes to no good end, well, I suppose, you know, realistically, there is a point where, okay, you do have to leave it. Of course, it's easily said, and I'm not sure that I would be one that could easily leave such a thing. You know, I'm very persistent and so forth. But there can be diminishing returns if one continues to force it. And then it's just such a crying shame when a person who just thought the whole thing was a hoax gets it and it's too late. So maybe, you know, all of this is also meant to induce a greater state of trust of our own capacities, our own medical workers, and not suspect everyone. Suspicion, number one cause of glamour on the first ray, then self-pity, then criticism. Thanks for your thought there, Heike.
Okay, and Tia says we must learn to work together even when our beliefs in the outer fundamentally differ. To paraphrase Benjamin Franklin, we must all hang together or we shall all hang separately. And then she also wanted to comment. So here, let me unmute her. Okay, you should be able to talk now. Tia?
Yes, thank you, Biel. I just wanted to say it's really interesting because I've been thinking a lot about this whole issue here in the United States, where people are being really sort of gathering in camps, fundamentally differing and politicizing the issue greatly. And it's interesting to me about this whole virus and how we respond to it, in the sense that we're faced with a lot of people I know here in America who are either unaware of the interior life or don't value it. And I know this kind of dovetails on the entire talk today, but if people were meditating or they had followed guidance or were even sensitive to the notion of guidance, because I talk to a lot of people and I say, do you even turn off the television and whatever the newspapers are saying? What does the voice say to you? What is your feeling about it? And I said, because when the issue of the vaccine came up for me and my family, I went within and I found my answer, and I'm unmoved on that. And I think that if we could try to talk to people, use this as an opportunity to talk to people about the interior life, it may be an opportunity for evolution and to see what good can come out of this, because this virus is a flashpoint for so many negative things. We could also use it as a flashpoint for something positive and something unifying.
Yeah, I agree that good can come out of this. It's meant to get us all talking to each other in a reasonable way. It's meant to bring us together, but you know, you kind of wonder how much suffering is required before people wake up to that possibility that you are enunciating here. Well, we will see. Right now, we have to see, that's where our educative tendencies as members of the new group of world servers, let us say, come in. We are educators too. And maybe we can open the door to something a little higher that we call inner guidance. And maybe there are some people who can actually take that step instead of just fearfully retreating to the old illusions and glamours. So that's another one of our responsibilities and something that I think we're fairly well suited to execute, to bring forward. Thank you, Tia. Thank you.
Okay, and then Michael has something to say. You want to go ahead, Michael?
Me, yeah. I just will read what I wrote and I guess add to it. I said, I believe one of the greatest glamours as a subset of fear is a fear of death. And from what I've experienced and witnessed during this time is that this fear of death has caused some incredible divisions and splits that only support the darker forces push for absolute control in the form world right now. With a constant diet of fear porn, we all see on the news all day long with fires, war, the virus, political wars, economic wars. How can one trust a venue that feeds a steady stream of fear to the public on an almost 24-hour basis? I think the more concerning issue to me is how this is going to shape the social climate and create multi-tier societies, which will leave most of the control of the form world in the hands of those who already have most of it. I've experienced some very extreme shifts in people who were logical. And now, after 4 years of Trump fear and now almost 2 years of virus fear, have chosen to deem the other as the enemy. And as long as we burn out that enemy, we will solve the problem. I think we know the problem humanity is facing is much broader than primal dualistic approaches. Divide and rule is a long-standing and tried and true method of controlling populations.
Thank you, Michael. These are wise words. Yeah, our problems are great because our possibilities are great. There was a time, 21 million years ago, we're told, when a huge transition took place and what we call humanity was born. Now the kingdom of souls has an open door, and the new possibilities is that a new kingdom can absorb millions of human beings, and they will be members of the fifth kingdom rather than only of the fourth. So whenever the big possibilities occur, the Lodge of Darkness gets to work, and all the crises appear. So it's a very big issue that we face, and let's just say the COVID is one aspect of that to bring us into the condition where humanity can be actually initiated. Well, thanks for your thoughts.
And then we have, sorry, I have to laugh. Nisa says the old saying, trust in Allah and tie up your camel.
Yeah. Keep your camel tethered. It was through the eye of the needle, you know. Camel can't get through the eye of a needle, but you better make sure no one rides away on your camel. That's, you know, it's like God helps those who help themselves. Of course, you can turn that around to mean if I grab everything that I want, God will help me, but we know what it really means. And the Buddha's final sermon, self-reliance, was his great theme. So and DK says, look, you're adult men and women, he says. So don't pretend that everything has to be done for you. Do what you can do. And we are there, of course, to assist you. And that assistance will be showing up in the next number of years in a more tangible way, I do believe. Okay, is that it?
There's a couple of thank yous to Michael. Looks like one to you and one to the other Michael. So at least based on the spelling of the name, but that's all that I see.
Okay, friends, well, we got to get on into our meditation, and this glamour of suspicion, I do believe, it's suspicion, and because of fear, you know. The fear factor is the great glamour within all the many glamours listed. And the heads of the Hydra, you know, sex, money, comfort, fear, hatred, and ambition. Fear, the greatest of all the glamours, it inhibits every possible learning situation and every possible application, and then pride, separativeness, and cruelty. Humanity, from its monadic gatherings, is a scorpionic kingdom, and we have much to overcome together. And if fear is rampant, fear of death, well, he deals with that quite a bit, as Michael was pointing it out. He says that fear is going to disappear, that fear of death, but it's obviously very active in the present decisions. It just depends on how people think they are going to die maybe at the hands of some nefarious force that they can identify as the elite or as the liberals or as the I don't know, the non-believers in any of these possibilities, the people who want to, you know, not just conservatives. Maybe there's nothing wrong with real conservatism, but the reactionaries, like that it was a very nice little video Tuya showed of the American Indian chief, it looks like, and he was named by a beautiful name. I forget, it was like a good fellow or good brother. And he talked about walking backwards. You can walk forward or walk backwards. And when he finished his 5-minute, 10-minute exposition, he said, "I have spoken." Well, we've got a lot of our society walking backwards into old, apparently safer positions, but they're not safe at all. And they're leading, well, through selfishness, they're leading to the death of thousands of people who didn't have to die. And we have to say that also about the attitude of the previous administration. Thousands of people dead who didn't need to die if only there was honesty and straightforwardness and less selfishness. Oh well, don't get me started. Okay, our glamour for today again is suspicion. One of the three primary glamours, with self-pity and criticism. The number of glamours is legion, really, and probably unique to every person. I don't know. I look deep within myself. Am I stupid? I don't know. I don't find in thousands and thousands of medical workers and trained physicians the suspicion that they're out to get me and everybody else so that the elite can have control, or so that the true American, let us say, will be defeated, and so that we let all those other people in who are carrying the disease and so forth. I don't find that at all in myself. And I marvel that people are so taken by it. What is it in the bottom of their own aura, as I like to describe it, that is stirring, welling up? It sounds like Pluto, really, as part of the preparation for the reappearance on an individual basis. Unfortunately, so many are suffering in every range, politically, in terms of the church, economically, and in terms of their health, who would not need to suffer in this way if there could be a cleansing, you know. And the Christ can't come, can't appear, doesn't dare appear unless there is this cleansing. All right, suspicion. So, we're not going to have every group member name himself right now. It's usually maybe for groups of 9, you know, but we will think about those who have gathered together now. And in this silence, we quite simply feel ourselves coming together as one consciousness and even as one being. And we know we're doing this very deep esoteric protective work, as DK has advised, but the protectors also need protection. We're not dealing with something that is sliding under the radar of the forces of opposition. And so we use this long arm cross, and then from left eye to right eye, and we use the mantra here given, tracing light as we go. As a soul, I work in light, and darkness cannot touch me. I take my stand within the light. I work, and from that point, I never move. And also, a large protective cross appears not only before everyone, but that cross of light, big one for the whole group. He calls it the cross of divinity. Now we prepare our beam. We focus the dual light of matter and of mind, we focus it on the mental plane. And we also meditate on soul contact and recognize soul light. And then we fuse upon the mental plane the two lesser lights of matter and of normal lower mind, normal thought process, with the light of the soul. So that when we think, we are supported by the vitality of matter and the light of the soul. And then we will say together, followed by the Om, having blended the three lights, we will say, the light is one, and in that light shall we see light. This is the light that turns the darkness into day. We try to remember that glamour is often thought from the Buddhic plane and the ruled by Scorpio. The light of day is the scorpionic light. Now the formula. As we say together, radiance are we and power. We stand forever with our hands stretched out, linking the heavens and the earth, the inner world of meaning and the subtle world of glamour. The world of meaning, the world of the soul. and the subtle world of glamour. We reach into the light and bring it down to meet the need. We reach into the silent place and bring from thence the gift of understanding. Thus, with the light we work and turn the darkness into day. And our searchlight is thrown out there onto the astral plane, the group searchlight, and the group weapon for dissipating the miasms of glamour. And then we wish to strengthen our beam through the spiritual will. And we visualize that happening. And we use the mantra to confirm this strengthening of our triple lighted beam. With power upon its beam, the light is focused on the goal. And that goal we know is the dissipation of glamour. The goal, again for tonight, the dissipation of the glamour of suspicion, which lurks in the aura of those who do not trust. Master Moria talks about the mine of trust. So the glamour to be dealt with has the light thrown upon it, this glamour of suspicion. Which is really a kind of projection upon others of what is found within oneself, as DK advises. So, suspicion. Which has ruined so many well-intended gestures and initiatives. As if everybody is lying to you, then be careful of the lie within yourself. And so we use the words of power. The power of our united light prevents the appearance of the glamour of suspicion. The power of our united light negates the quality of the glamour of suspicion from affecting humanity. The power of our united light destroys the life behind this glamour. Now, we're visualizing our beam penetrating into this glamour, however we want to visualize it, and producing its weakening and its dissipation. And for 5 minutes we will attend to it interiorly with the group, and yet each in his own way. So 5 minutes where we watch this dissipation occurring. Yoga Sutras, when thoughts contrary to yoga appear, substitute appropriate thoughts for the incorrect thoughts, the contrary thoughts. And so one day there will be, and may it be sooner than later, a great trust, and a deserved trust, welling up within humanity. In those days, as Moria says, when human beings will vie with each other to do good. So let us withdraw our beam, which has weakened this suspicion, this distrust, this sense that everyone is lying to you. We withdraw our beam, we redistribute the lights in their appropriate place. And we sound the Om. Three times, realizing that glamour in the large sense has been weakened, along with illusion and Maya. And we learn how to draw our sustenance from the mine of trust. Thank you, friends, for being here to meditate together. And as I say, if these programs occur at a time that you just can't make them, well, they are available on Makara and also on our YouTube station channel, Moria Federation Esoteric Education. I don't think we have anything coming up tomorrow, but on Sunday we do. And on Sunday there is the Assumption of Mary meditation. We know what Mary means symbolically as the acquiescent disciple, but also as the earth itself. So we always have that in August 15th, and then Francis will be offering one of his webinars here. The
Secret Doctrine.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly so. And there it is for you on the weekly schedule that Tuya and Anne prepare for us. So, friends, there's plenty to assimilate and apply, and it just is a question of whether we do it or do not do it. So, think about your sense of values. What do you value the most and why? What is the essential? And are you engaged in the doing of that which is essential? So all of us on the communications team, uh, we wish you lots of love and many blessings and continued persistence in this work. Over the next several years, when the counterforce, well, it probably gets worse before it gets better. Not a nice thing to think about, but they are desperate, and so will obsess everyone they can, driving them in the wrong direction, the direction which leads to no spiritual benefit or improvement for humanity. We have to be ready for that. Okay, and Michael, thank you for your help on all these Zoom matters. Really helps to have someone who knows the program inside out. So, we wish you the best, and we will sign off at this point. What can I wish you? Happy Friday the 13th, but remember the 34th anniversary of the founding of the University of the Seven Rays, also on August the 13th. I don't think it was a Friday. I think it was a Thursday. I'll have to look it up, but that would have been maybe a little more auspicious. Okay. Bye for now.